Hello, Bridget. How are you? Thank you for being on the Artistprenuer podcast with us.
I'm so good. It's so good to see you, Travis, always.
Oh, you too. Bridget is a good friend. Known her since I can't even remember when we met.
It's been a really long time.
But Bridget is an incredible singer, songwriter, producer. Now she's a mixing engineer and probably a mastering engineer as well. She's been singing her whole life, and her and I met in Seattle through music. I really think it was through Nate Vibes, Nate Diet, but Nate,
Yeah.
where he did a show. We did a show together, I think, somewhere, and I remember hearing from a lot of friends like, "Why are you not like writing with Bridget? Like, why, you know?" And then Chase, aka
Yes.
Cha-Cha, producer, Higher Music, AOMG, the man, the myth, the legend.
Yes.
We ended up like connecting even more of like, well, that was when I realized, oh my God, we have so many mutual friends and we need to meet, and so that's kind of where it all started, right?
For sure. Especially because like the music scene in Seattle at the time isn't, I mean, even till now, it's just really when you know somebody, you know kind of everybody, just like you would anywhere else, I guess. But I was super excited because I think being in Seattle and being part of the music scene, unless you're really, really in there, it's actually not really easy to find creatives like randomly. Maybe not as much as you would in New York or LA. And so I think, the moment that we met and started talking music, there was just an immediate connection, which always is just always exciting.
But yeah, no, we've known each other for a while, and I've just always respected the hell out of you. You've always been so driven. You were living the life that I wanted to live. You had a writing deal, right? If you had a record deal, if I'm not, mistaken.
Yeah.
And I just remember everybody, especially the Phil M community, we celebrate the ones, in our hometowns, and we were like, man, Bridget's doing it, So anyways, I would love to, especially for everyone here to hear, your inspiring story about like, where she started and kind of where it's led you.
Totally. I'm trying to figure out how far back I want to start, but even even with the label thing, it was hard to navigate because there was nobody that I knew directly that was even doing something remotely close at the time. But I'll start back. I mean, when it comes to my music journey in general, I've always loved writing. We had the same voice teacher, Tita Cecile.
Yeah.
And I never knew that until I think we were just talking randomly. I can't remember. It was at some show, and like, so you know the intensity and the trainings, it all. And it started back, when I think I started voice lessons with her when I was in 7th, 8th grade. And she was super intense, and I was just super nervous. And I tell this story because it just makes me believe that anybody who wants to improve in voice really can, because I remember my audition with her. I sang like a Leanne Rimes song, and then she told me that I killed the song, and it wasn't in a good way. Like, I was 12 or something, and she was just... And it was a thing. It stayed with me, obviously, but I was like scarred. But in a way, I was like, I wanted to get better because she says, "Hey, I'll take you under my wing. Just do this." And I took lessons for a really long time, on and off. It was like a total of 7 years. And then I eventually took her students on when she moved from Seattle to California.
Wow.
So that was great. Yeah, totally. And then after that, into high school, just started writing talent shows. Isn't it? It's just incredible getting up on a stage for the first time, something brand new. I mean, you get it. I think something that I would tell my students all the time is, hey, vocal is one thing. When you're up on stage, it's a completely different thing.
Facts.
You activate nerves that you never even experienced before, and that's something that comes with practice. So you could be singing for so long in your room or in lessons, but the moment you get on stage, that's not lesson number 1. That's the first stage lesson. And so I don't know if you relate in that sense. How do you feel when you're up on stage?
Absolutely. I remember New Heights, my old band, we did this retreat thing. That there was this label that was putting on this retreat, and they were like bankrolled by like one of the creators of the cell phone. And so
Oh, wow.
this, yeah, it was funny because like this label had like all these kind of heavy hitter A&R people from Nashville and stuff that like discovered all these people. And I just remember being like, they don't have any artists out yet. I'm like, how do they afford everything? And then when you
Right.
realize, oh, they're bankrolled by like a multi-billionaire. It's just kind of like,
Wow.
so it was, what was cool about it though is that it ended up, they aggregated like some really amazing people, really talented people. But then, and they worked with us like for the week of like, it was like songwriting workshops and things like that. But my favorite one was with a stage coach. And
Yes.
we'd never done that before. And she talked about creating moments in all this. And the reason why I say it is because you're absolutely right. Because singing is one thing, but performing is an art
Right.
of itself, right? And to have a teacher like you, Bridget, I don't know if you're taking on clients, but like, if you guys can get a slot, on her schedule, I don't know if she's offering it, send her candy and roses, I don't know.
Candy and roses.
I don't
Let's
know.
go.
I would love candy and roses if somebody sent me.
I would too. Right.
But yeah, it totally is an art in and of itself, isn't it? Performing.
100%. And I think a lot of the times there was like a breakthrough. Quick story. I remember I was at the Filipino Community Center doing a show, like one of my like first shows. I think I was signed to like Battalion at the moment. And then I was wearing heels. I don't wear heels a lot. Back in the day, I wasn't like wearing heels. I'm kind of like a tomboy type of deal. And so I was like, oh, I'm wearing heels on this stage. And I don't know if anyone's ever been to that. There's just these little tiny stairs up on top of the stage. And I bit it during my performance. Absolutely bit it because of these heels. I don't know if anyone's ever seen like the clack, clack. Oh, yeah. I mean, it was embarrassing, absolutely. But I think it was a teachable moment because I kept going. And then I stumbled again because of those heels, and I just took them off in the middle of the song and just kept singing. And honestly, I had to learn how to laugh at myself in that moment. And then the entertainment mode in me kicked in to where I started interacting with the front row and just things like that, because they're almost as not shy as you as the moment that you hone in on them. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very interesting when you learn how to either control an environment, especially with performing. Like you said, it's definitely a new art, but it's so much fun.
Yes.
Once you get the hang of it. But
it's literally the magic, I feel like, that we talk, because, and I've been talking to a lot of people about this lately, Bridget, but like music cannot be yes, it feels like it's created in a vacuum, but it cannot be given in a vacuum. It has to be exchanged in the sense of like the interaction of the art, right? Like we make songs, right, for the purpose of essentially reducing suffering, right? Like we create music because we want to connect with people, and just by connecting, we're reducing suffering, right? And it's especially performing. Like we want to be able to take these songs and perform them and have that reciprocation, on stage. And I love that you said, like, I mean, it sounds like you got fearless. So there's a Dave Chappelle quote that I love. He was inside the actor studio years ago, and he was talking. It was kind of maybe a year or so after, there's a big like debacle between him and Comedy Central. Like, remember he had like all these successful seasons of Chappelle Show, and then he like just bounced and left.
Right.
And great episode. I encourage everyone to go watch it. But the thing he talked about was when he got booed off stage the first time, and he had been killing it in his hometown, I think in Ohio somewhere, and then he finally was able to get a slot on Apollo. And he was like, I stood up there and they were just booing me. And he was like, Grandma's that. He's like, what grandma boos a 17-year-old child for like, pursuing his dreams? And then there's like the guy, the tap dancer that, dances him off, type of thing.
Yeah.
And he was like, I wanted to kill that tap dancer. But he goes, the lesson I feel like was, he goes, I stood there and I'm watching everyone booing, and he goes, I realized that if this is the worst, if this is like literally the worst thing that could happen, this isn't that bad, actually. And he goes, from that moment, he became fearless. And I was like, oh my God. So that was the first thing I heard of when, you were able to like, usually that's the thing that we're so scared of. Even like before while we're rehearsing, we're like, don't trip. No, don't fall. Like we're thinking all this stuff, yet we psych ourselves out. But did you become fearless in that moment?
Absolutely. It was almost like I had no choice because I was also loving it so much. I never stopped singing as I fell, as I took the shoes off.
That's bad.
And I think because clinging to it, I knew that I was doing something that I loved, sharing it with people. Regardless, it was like music was transcendent in that moment to where it doesn't matter what happens. I love this and I'm going to make the most of it. And so that, yeah, totally. When that happened, it was like something else switched.
Do you feel like you were living in your purpose at that moment?
Yes, 100%. Because I think hindsight, I also think about girls who wanted to do the same thing. And so it was almost like a subconscious, how do I want to be an example here? And what would I like to see if I were a young girl in the audience? And be that. There's nothing stopping you from being what you want to see. And so I think a piece that you talked about, like the vulnerability, I think in music is so incredible because you're exactly right. When I write songs, I'm hoping and praying that at least one person wouldn't feel alone, just one. And I think that's always been it for me. When I've sung in church, when I've sung anywhere, I've always prayed like, God, just one. Help just one person to not feel alone, because that's what music's done for me, right?
Yeah.
Where you feel, wow, what? I'm not weird or I'm not strange. This is actually a thing. Yes. And music does that in like an enjoyable way. It's beautiful.
Oh, in one of the most, incredible ways, right? It's the music is the great equalizer because we think in like these kind of totem poles of life, right? We think that these people are more experienced or whatever, but it equalizes us. It puts us on this horizontal plane where we're like, oh, it doesn't matter if this person's a billionaire or whatever. We're all, we're all either fans of this artist or we're fans of this song. We can sing the same song. And I think that that little saying that we can sing the same song is something that we all need to understand. Like, it is the exchange. It really is that energy of like, and it's because us as artists, right? We're able to speak for through our experiences for people that can't say it.
Right.
Right. And I think that it sounds, that's what I was feeling, at least from what you were saying, of like, let there at least be one, right? That's my prayer. Right. Let there at least be one person that I can affect. And I think that what's cool about, what's also kind of frustrating, especially if we're like thinking as entrepreneurs, but the best thing and frustrating thing is that we can't measure how far that goes into time and space, right?
Right. Yes, 100%. Like I was actually thinking about that one night, falling asleep, and I was thinking music outlives us. I think about how many songs that I listened to of lives who have passed so long ago. Look at the Christmas songs we still sing today were written how long ago? And it's something that's just like, right, you can go into the history of that. I remember Googling like the history of the Happy Birthday song.
Oh my gosh, what did you discover?
I went down that hole. That's 100%. I'm like, what? When you talk about royalties and like copyright and ownership.
It'd be the worst to be the writer of the Happy Birthday song.
Right. And I don't know who would ever write a song of that nature ever again. And
we call them jingle artists now.
Yes, like community property for the world. It's just really interesting to me. I love it so much. And although, I've held different jobs in my lifetime that have equipped me for now, and I think there's nothing like the music industry. It's challenging. It's beautiful. It's unique and scary. And just like you said, owning a business, it's just like that. You're putting, you're going forward even when you're scared. You just go.
Actually, I did want to ask you about that. Like, so obviously, you had started singing and everything, but when did it take it? When did you, I guess, feel like you had the fortitude or made the decision of like, you know what, I want to go for this? Was there an opportunity that was presented to you, or was it something like you started to seek out on your own, especially as, let's be real here, as a film, woman of color?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
And especially when we started, in that time, like, I went to high school, I graduated in 2005. So like early 2000s, that was especially, it was like peak time for the labels to have control. Like the second,
yes.
I think the peak was like 80s, 90s. And then, Napster hit. And then, but once that case was settled, then it all of a sudden became like they had control again? Like what was the turning point for you that made you decide you wanted?
Man, that's oh my gosh. I think as a writer, songwriter, I felt like I had so much to say, and so that started like creating my whole album. Nobody asked me to do it. I just felt like I wanted to have it done. I was in high school, started putting it together. I think I finished my first like album that I've ever done the first year of college, and from there it just became a bigger thing. I never stopped writing from that point. Even when I think I started writing when I was in 8th grade, never stopped. And that just kind of took on a life of its own, because the moment that I started doing it because I loved it, opportunities come, right? It's classic. If you build it, they will come. It was classic, just like YouTube. It was like, it's a cliche saying for a reason. And I experienced that in that moment. You know, YouTube became a thing that first year of college. And I think it was so significant because even being a Fil-Am person, you weren't seeing anybody Filipino on the radio, or unless you were like on Napster back in the day, and then you got like one voice.
Yeah, shout out.
Yeah, right. And you really had to search. I think YouTube opened up the floodgates for Asian American artists to be heard and show labels that there is an audience, because it was all heavily community supported. Right. No labels, no nothing. It was the people. Yes. And it was really cool. Yeah, it was great to see that happen. Again, I would just sing because it was something I loved. YouTube became a thing, and then that's when I got signed. There were 2 labels kind of I could kind of choose from. It was either West Coast or East Coast, and I chose the East Coast to experience something different. Yeah, but it was scary. I mean, being like, I just turned 18, didn't know anything about the music industry. My mom didn't know anything about the music industry. Nobody I knew. And so we were all...
Were you?
Oh my gosh, my mom was just... I can't imagine being like my mom. For me, what is this child doing?
It's like, it's scared, but it's more stressed scared.
Yeah. That's exactly what it was. And oh my goodness, I think it helped that I was the youngest sibling. So I'm like, you got it all out of your sister, right? You have 2 kids at college. Like, I can do my own thing. And so story is, you know, I was on a scholarship at UW and I left.
Wow.
To do this. And a lot of people, like, honestly, on the outside, like, oh, that was crazy. Well, honestly, it was the Bill Gates scholarship back in the day where they gave like just a whole bunch of kids. And, you know, I was in communications. I didn't know what I wanted to do. In school, I wanted to do music, which is why I left. I was so convinced while I was watching and discussing with friends in college who didn't know what they wanted to do. I was like, I know so badly what I want to do. I have to leave. And it was just always this constant pull of something bigger. And just for my mind space, and I wanted to go there. I was like, there are people like me somewhere. I got to go find them. And when I left, I found them. So, you know, it's that saying, what was it? You'll never discover new lands unless you have courage to leave the shore.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yes.
Such a great quote. Right. We have to kind of let go in a sense, right? And give in to like mystery.
And that's the business aspect too, right? Letting to start your own business. So I think we're seeing the crossover between entrepreneurship and music, because you're putting all your eggs in your basket yourself. Like you are it. So if you don't believe it, nobody else is going to.
You got to build the basket. And then
right. Exactly. Oh yeah. 100%. Especially, I mean, I didn't know anybody in the music industry. My parents weren't somebody that were like connected. I didn't have, you know, it was hard to navigate.
But how long?
But I grew a lot.
That's amazing. If I can ask you, and you don't have to go into details because I know that, you know, contracts are contract things, but like,
sure.
How long was like, how long did it go? And if I can ask you too, what was like kind of the most surprising thing for you, like, you know, for good, bad or worse, that, because I think that the through line question I'm trying to find is how that led you to where you are now, you know, like what was, so I'd love to hear, you know, a little bit about that.
Oh my gosh, that's such a huge question, but I think, One, I signed the contract really young. I was just super, I'm going to do this. I have no idea what this is going to bring. And in doing that, you know, as a young or as a teenager, I signed something, don't realize what's going to happen from here. All my music was owned and everything, even prior to being on the label. And that was definitely a eye-opening experience. I mean, in exchange, I met a lot of great songwriters, Grammy-winning writers, and amazing artists in the process. So I think it was like,
craft.
100%. To be in the room and see the way they worked, how they talked, the process, it was like
so inspiring.
That was, oh gosh, I would want to be in that class every day, all day. And I was learning so much efficiency and the way to melodies, learning all that and hearing how people hear. It stuck with me. And it rolled me to becoming a completely different writer, a completely different person and just musician. So in that sense, I think it was about, 3-4 years. I was in that contract for quite some time, but it was because of that situation where later on I would come to study contract law and become a paralegal on the way because I wanted to know for myself how to do this.
Because you experienced what it was like to not know and then to sign something. And was that kind of the catalyst of like, I've done that before, and so I'm going to cover this next time. So now I'm going to just understand it all.
100%. And I was like, this is going to help me in any situation if I learn how to interpret and learn how to read and really kind of get past the fluff and get past the templatization of a lot of things and understand things to look out for. So
you know, that's something so important because it's like it's always the artist, like we go through some things and then we learn, right? But it's always, that's why a lot of times especially as artists, entertainers, you know, I'm here in LA, so like, you know, if you're not anxious, then like, are you from LA? You know, like because every decision, you know, that like we make is so important. But it's interestingly, the thing that I've learned is that when we close ourselves off from being open to making mistakes, we don't learn anything, right? We don't actually grow or evolve. And it's easy for someone to think, oh, you know, like Bridget shouldn't have done that. But that's, you're so past that. It's like, that's the journey. And if she wouldn't have done that, she wouldn't have become and known all these things and become better, right? The story probably would have ended there. You know?
Yeah.
And I just want to applaud you on your courage on like, and the thing one thing kind of tangential, but like you said, hearing how people hear, I think is so important because that's something I've been trying to discover more, especially as I'm, you know, developing these businesses and, you know, growing my own teams and trying to become more efficient. Like my big question, how do I stay an art creator, but, you know, work with other people and really create that? But learning how people hear, you said it so passively, which was great because it's like, you know, but I think it's something that everybody needs to hear. Like, we need to understand how people listen, how people learn. That gives us really great insight into working with each other. You know, like I'm really into, not so much for the spiritual aspect, but I'm really into like zodiac signs just because I think there's like there's so many parallels there that are like really fun because it's like okay, not everybody's a cookie cutter thing, but there's certain things that we're attracted, like all the Aquarius friends I have. We all love the stars. I don't know why. And we just talk about it, you know, so it's kind of fun like that. But do you feel like like when you were crafting your melody and all that stuff, do you still go back to some of those lessons you learned when you were working with these people, even when you're working?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, all the time. And sometimes like I can hear them saying things in my head.
Awesome.
That sounded crazy.
No, meaning like the mentors are still there, you know, like I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm constantly learning. So taking classes, and I think that's one thing is to just never stop learning. Even when you found a sound or found a style, there's inspiration everywhere. And even to this day, I think something that's been fun for me too is hearing how people hear when I write songs and it's something that I either want to try placing for a specific artist or type of style. I really try to go there, try to put yourself in that artist's head. What's their sound or where? Try to embody that, and sing it as if you were them. When I do takes, I put myself in that situation. Like okay, I'm this person. And it comes out sonically too.
Do you feel like also it's like you fuse with that person and then it becomes kind of right your taste, but also through that person?
Right. Yes.
Oh.
I think one of the most satisfying things has been hearing people interpret or sing things that I've written. It's so satisfying. It's because it's like, yes, that's totally how I envisioned it. Creating a painting and then seeing it. That's when you see it come to life. It's so fun.
So in regards to like your journey with the label and everything like that, if I can, you don't have to talk about all of it, but if I can ask you, what was most surprising about that whole experience?
Was how fluid that it was, in the sense of like, there's absolutely no structure when it comes to music. To be honest, I think it's just like everyone's not out to get you. It's more just like every man for themselves. And that's why I think that's what's surprising is you can sign a deal, but honestly, you're still on your own in a sense of like, you've got to keep doing things. You've got to keep learning. You've got to keep at it. Because I think the assumption, especially in those days, was once you were signed, oh, you're fine. Like, everything's great. Even today, people are saying, this person should get signed. And I'm like, I don't think people on the other side of music understand what that word really means. Because people assume that everything's going to be just autopilot from here. You're going to land songs. You're going to be a superstar. It's really not that. And signed is just step one.
Yeah.
And then, honestly, and so that was the most surprising. And I think to this day, I look back and I'm so appreciative of like all the support and the friends that I found along the way. It's the people for me. I mean, I still hang out and talk to writers that I met so many years ago.
Wow, community.
Yeah, it's beautiful because like-minded people, right? It doesn't matter where you end up living. You have connection with them always.
Yeah,
forever.
It's a kinship. It's like, that's why it's an energy thing. I really believe in energy, and
Mm-hmm.
we always operate out of that, like our authentic energy, like, our soul, like we operate from that. And when we can find other people that either like it's like we're magnetized to, because it's like the same, plane, like the same, or we're curious about the same thing. Like, I think that kind of connection, especially in this time right now with, being, I keep saying post-COVID, but it's not, it's like, it's just like, we're in this interesting time of like, we so badly want it to end, but it's going to be kind of going for a while, but especially where it's scary, right? It's scary to be around people. It's scary. We were shut down for like so long, and all of a sudden when we're learning again how to be, and I just feel like musicians and art creators specifically, and you kind of see it with all these like these things booming and these different new industries booming, but it's creativity that's really uniting people. And I think it's the need for creativity that's making people not only curious, but I think courageous to be able to go out and try and find more connection. I love that you talked about with like the label stuff. If I can summarize, let me know if this is right, but it's not all that it's cracked up to be, right? Like
that's true.
And we were told that, growing up, I was, it's hard now to untether myself at times, right? Because it's been so conditioned in us that getting signed was the golden ticket. Getting signed was a lottery ticket of like, rags to riches story and all these things. But when you really look at it, I'm just now talking to you listener out there, if you're an MBA or if you're in business, or, if you have any inkling of like, college courses of business, everything, these companies are businesses. Like, so, and businesses are companies, and a company is a group of people out to make a profit. And that's great. And I think that that's fine. And our country is a capitalist country. And I think capitalism is, in the right term, can be great. But the issue is that when it comes up against art and artists, the only way that we've been told to be an artist is to sell our art, because the companies created this system where it's like, okay, to make our money grow faster, we think, not from the artist situation, but from the business situation, we have to exploit these records. Like, it's better to buy these or sign the artist and then really own the records. But when I was during this whole pandemic and like looking at the whole music industry from a macro state, that's just one way, of creating more art and creating an industry, and it doesn't have to be that way solely.
Right. It's been so crazy living through this entire transition of the music industry. You see, it's always constantly going someplace else. And I think the moment that YouTube became a thing, independent artists just, it became revolutionary. You're getting numbers that labels would typically pay for back in the day, and, before the model was, hey, if you're talented enough, we will shape you. It started off as that into, hey, show me how many followers you created on your own, and then we can talk, and then we can work.
And unfortunately, it's hard because us as artists, we want to develop ourselves. Like they've put the onus on us now, right, to develop ourselves.
Right.
But and this is kind of the hope, especially with this podcast and with Fandid and what we're doing. We're trying to show the world that the onus is now on you to develop yourself, but replicating their systems is actually not going to be the way to be successful. Like replicating and just copying an artist, with a hot sound, it's not going to be it. It truly, what I believe is your own authentic creativity, which is you, which is the nuances and the things that typically, which is funny enough, are the things that we don't want to say or the things that we're scared to say. That's the originality that, like, I believe should be at the forefront. And then from there, other people can see your originality and connect with it. Let there just be one. Let there just be one. Then it becomes this thing of like, now you're living your authentic self versus living someone else's life or trying to be an artist that you're not.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That resonates with me so much in a sense of, that's exactly what I was doing as an artist, was trying to figure out who do I need to be like to be successful. And now it's, our authenticity today is, oh gosh, it's just number one. That's the only reason I'll follow anybody. It's the only reason I will, I'm sucked into a sound or sucked into music, because you can tell it's 100% authentic. There's no striving to be like anybody else. It's, and I think that's because you're hearing the vulnerability, which I talked about earlier, that hits with people. And it's not like, it's not like you're trying so hard. It's just like, this is me. I'm gonna be me, and I hope you like it. Even that is just there's a sincerity in that, being unapologetically you. That I will follow to the end. I love that.
Yes. Yeah. Because, and it's even a thing of like, I hope you like it, but you don't have to. Like, I'm not even like, I'm the artist. I'm the one that created it, and I can hear all the things that I don't like about it. The things I would.
Gosh,
but Spotify
we can go there.
Right? Okay. Spotify won't let me update, my mix. So you're gonna have to deal with that version.
Yes.
It's that, and I think what's so cool, like, shout out to Joe Coy, Easter Sunday, and everything. We're seeing these stories of these things that, like, I mean, honestly, I cried multiple times at Easter Sunday. It was funny. It was a great film, and it wasn't even parts where like everybody's laughing and I'm crying. It's like I prayed for a day like this. I couldn't believe that, like, the little things of like the uncle with that works for the post office that has too many butterfly knives. So it's like, did you see it already yet at all?
No, I haven't seen it yet. I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not.
No, you're gonna.
But like,
I'm going to very
those
soon.
little nuances, right? Seeing them on the big screen, it was just like, oh my gosh, like, we matter,
Yeah.
And I think that's why I got emotional about it was, some people, the reviews are, this or that, but at the end of the day, I feel like as an artist, like, that is our job. Like Ethan Hawke had this great TED Talk, and I always talk about it now, but like, Ali sent me it, and it was like from like 2020, like during like the big shutdown. But he said, play the fool. Like, that's literally the only job of the artist, is to play the fool, is to be the one that people call foolish, because to be vulnerable is to be foolish, because the default mode network of human beings is fight or flight, to protect ourselves. So it's like, it's almost like a psychology hack where to be an artist, it actually is to be foolish and to be called foolish, because that's when we're authentic, and that's when, because that hits our look. We get most like angry at people or negative when our insecurities are hit,
Yeah.
And if we're not doing that for someone, then there can't be any growth. So it's almost like the negativity is welcomed, because the world operates like that. The world operates from this state, but we could provide hope by being fearless and by being courageous and playing the fool.
Oh my gosh, that hits, because oh my goodness, it strikes a chord with me, because when after I did American Idol, and the part of the story was like, hey, I let go of a scholarship immediately. Like there were things about just going online and seeing the Filipino community talk about that, and how like, oh, that was dumb, or things like that. I'm like, honestly, and to others, again, it'll feel that way, but I was so convinced. I'm like, I didn't care. The worst I could hear is from my mom. I don't care what anybody else has to say.
Really who
I was
really
right. And I was like, that's completely fine. But at the same time, obviously it's impactful because I still remember it, but it was almost just like wow, to some people I do look really foolish, and honestly I don't care. I love something so much, and it brings me joy, it brings me purpose. I know what I'm meant to do, and that's fine. And so again, that's honestly been the mindset that has kept me forward. And I always felt called to music. I know a lot of people say that, but it was more so what I mentioned was the one person. Let me connect with one person. Anytime I write a song or perform.
Because there's a there's a universe that lives within that person, and it echoes seriously into time and space. I mean, I'm just fascinated with space, because it's some of these new the James the new telescope is just amazing, and it's funny. It's crazy to think about, because it's we're looking at images that are billions of years old, because technically the light for it to come back it's just bizarre. And so I guess what I'm saying is that is so important, because we are spiritual beings. We're not robots. We don't even know our history too long ago. And I guess what I'm saying is that we only have this one life, right? We only have this time, and for some reason we exist from here to there, and the thing I'm trying to encourage always myself and especially others is to not live your life for according to someone else's needs, right?
Yeah.
We need to live what's the saying? Don't live other people's lives. Live ours. And if we're looking at the opinions of others, and it's really hard, especially as Filipino American artists, because first of all, we have to protect ourselves, but then it's the scariest thing for our parents if we put ourselves out there, because we're not protecting ourselves. We're not being safe.
Right.
I was talking to a Filipino American artist yesterday, my friend Jessica Louise, and we were kind of riffing on this idea. She was talking about her parents and stuff, many good cries, it was great. But we were maybe what we need to do is prove to our parents and prove to the people that, impact our decisions, that this is our safety.
Yeah.
This is our safe space. This is actually where we're going to feel the most in tune with our authenticity,
Yes. It's where we flourish. I remember there was a moment where I was kind of scarred by the whole label deal. It was just a bad situation at one point, and I was like, maybe I just need to stop. Maybe this is not what I want to do. I think the business part stole my joy at some point. But into that a little bit later, but it just paralyzed me for a second. Just made me think do I really want to keep doing this? Is this, worth it? And honestly, I thought about my mom saw my spirit, my light kind of just go out. And I didn't really, I knew it for myself internally. And she said, you need to go back to music. I never would have imagined her saying that. I would have imagined her to encourage something else. But she just saw something in me change when the authenticity is no longer there. You're trying to, what you say, live someone else's life. That's what I was trying to do, because I'm maybe I need to do this or whatnot and be a normal person. And after a while, she's like, that's not you. I think you need to switch.
Wow,
And,
that's you. That's so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the moment, I think going ahead with her blessing and encouragement, which bless her heart, because it was a world she didn't know how to navigate, but she was like, I think there's something there for you because it brings out the best in you. You need to go there, even though I can't follow you there. I know. I'm like teary-eyed thinking about that too, because I cannot imagine trying to lead like your child somewhere that you have no idea what's going to happen. But oh my gosh, I'm like getting really choked up.
I think the reason why, and this happened literally the last, whenever we talk about our parents, because I think that's also why Fandid means so much to me, because it literally was because of our community that made us believe. And we have so many, and obviously too, like it's also our community that can also be really mean, but but it is only through community that we can really believe in ourselves. It's for me to get to even just to the point where I could write my first song. It was years of me playing at my home church growing up, of friends and titas and titos, like just encouraging me. I needed all of that just to get to the point of be like, well, maybe I can write a song,
Right.
and it's so easy to think that like, oh, this artist went from there to all the way there, all on their own. But no, it always takes people. It always takes a community. And, I mean, just with Fandid, what we're trying to do is say, like, launch through that, right? Allow your community to invest in you first, or invest in your projects first, so that you can have a better propensity to create impact across people. Because really what Fandid exists for is not this, okay, yes, monetary, right? Yes, we need funding. But even more than that, the musical journey starts, it's all community-based. And if we're not growing with that, then we're always going to be anxious, and we're always going to be scared of others. And I know that, honestly, Bridget, we got to schedule another one, because there has to be a part 2 to this, because there's so much more. I feel like whenever we talk, we could talk literally for hours. But if on that same energy of like, you're with like your culture and with your family and with all that, like if you could go back in time and you could imagine like 15-year-old Bridget, and I don't even know what grade that is, 15.
It was that
I don't even know. Anyway,
freshman.
Is it? Yeah, right. And if you go back in that time, like I'm trying to remember me as a freshman, but like this, if you could tell 15-year-old Bridget anything, like that now that you, with the wisdom that you know now, like what would it be?
Oh my gosh. First, I'm like, kind of want to like shake her. like, what are you doing? Oh gosh. I think there's so much I would tell her, but one, God is good and will see, and there's nothing that will surprise him. And then two, your courage will be the thing to echo even after your life. What you do based on your courage can affect somebody in a completely different generation or in another life, which is why I think music is such a huge part of my story. Somebody singing those words, somebody listening those songs, like the courage to do that and continue to do that will echo even when you're gone. So keep doing that.